contained atmosphere bubbles. A few moved on legs that numbered anywhere from 2 to 12. This was the place where warriors from across the galaxy came to show their strength and share their skills. Commander Una Park walked through the main corridor with her small team behind her. She wore the standard uniform of the Terran Defense Force. Dark blue fabric with silver insignia that marked Earth as the newest member trying to join this ancient gathering. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Her eyes took in everything around her without showing emotion. Behind her walked Lieutenant Marcus Kim and 4 other humans. They were the first official delegation from Earth to ever attend the exchange. The other species barely looked at them. When they did, the expressions were clear even across alien faces: amusement, dismissal, curiosity at best. Earth was a backwater world in their eyes. Humans had only just figured out faster than light travel. They had no great military victories in space, no conquered worlds, no reputation except for being the newcomers, who barely qualified for an invitation. Una led her team into the grand arena. The space was enormous. The ceiling rose so high it vanished into darkness. Floating platforms held thousands of alien spectators. In the center was a space that could transform into any kind of testing ground. Today, it was set up for combat demonstrations. Each species got their turn to show what made them special. The Vraxians went first. They were massive creatures that stood over 3 meters tall. Their bodies were covered in thick armor-like skin that was dark red and ridged. 4 arms ending in claws that could tear through steel. Their leader Drachna stepped into the arena floor. He grabbed a massive weapon that looked like a cannon fused with a sword. The targets appeared at various distances. Drachna fired the weapon. Each shot exploded with enough force to leave craters. His accuracy was decent, but the real show was the raw, destructive power. The crowd roared approval. Next came the Chitrel, insect-like beings that moved as one unified mind. 50 of them entered the arena at once. They demonstrated tactical coordination that seemed impossible, moving in patterns so complex and synchronized that they looked like one organism with 50 bodies. They hit targets from every angle at the same time. The crowd appreciated the display of hive mind efficiency. The Luminari were harder to describe. They existed partially in another dimension. Beings of energy and light that could barely hold physical form. They manipulated targets without touching them. Energy blasts that curved around obstacles. Shields that appeared from nothing. It looked like magic, but the Luminari representative explained it was simply their natural biology interacting with quantum fields. The crowd was impressed as always. Then it was humanity's turn. The announcement came across the arena in a dozen different languages simultaneously. The Terran Defense Force would now demonstrate their capabilities. Una stood up from where her delegation sat. She walked alone to the arena floor. The noise in the arena shifted. There was laughter from some sections. The humans had shown nothing special so far. They had no natural armor like the Vraxians, no hive mind like the Chitrel, no energy manipulation like the Luminari. They were just soft bipedal creatures with basic tool use. Una reached the center. She wore no special armor. She carried no massive weapon. On her hip was a standard issue pistol. Simple design. Fire small metal projectiles using chemical propellant. The kind of weapon most species had abandoned thousands of years ago in favor of energy, weapons or mass accelerators. Drachner had moved to the observation platform where the military leaders sat. He leaned back in his seat that had been specially made to hold his bulk. He looked at Una standing alone in the massive arena. She looked tiny, fragile. He felt something like pity mixed with contempt. These humans had traveled so far just to embarrass themselves. He spoke loud enough for those around him to hear. "Show me this human talent I have heard whispered about. The translator systems carried his words across the arena. Some of the aliens laughed. Others waited to see what would happen. The humans in the delegation section remained quiet and still. The arena floor transformed. Targets materialized at different distances. Some near at 50 meters. Others far at 200 meters. A few at the maximum distance of 400 meters. For the weapons the other species used, these were reasonable ranges. For a simple chemical projectile pistol, these distances were considered extreme, especially the targets at 400 meters. Most species would need a mounted weapon or computer assistance to hit, something that far away with any consistency. Yuna stood still for a moment. Her hand rested near her pistol, but had not drawn it yet. She appeared to be doing nothing, just breathing. Her eyes moved across the targets, calculating, measuring, feeling something that the watching aliens could not sense. Then she moved. Her hand went to the pistol grip. The draw was smooth like water flowing. No wasted motion. The weapon came up and her arm extended. 6 shots fired so fast they almost sounded like one long roll of thunder. The spent casings ejected into the air, glinting under the arena lights. Before the first casing hit the ground, Yuna had already holstered her. Weapon. Silence filled the arena. The target display activated, showing the results. Every shot had hit center mass. Not just hits, but perfect placement in the kill zone. The 50-meter targets showed holes grouped so tight they almost overlapped. The 200-meter targets each had a single hole dead center. The 400-meter targets that should have been nearly impossible to hit with a handheld ballistic weapon showed the same result. Perfect accuracy. The silence stretched, then broke into chaos. Aliens stood up from their seats. Multiple species began talking at once in their various languages, creating a wall of sound. The translator system struggled to keep up. Some were demanding to see the weapon. Others wanted to inspect the targets. A few were already claiming it must have been luck or some kind of trick. Draknar sat forward in his seat. His forearms tensed. The smirk had vanished from his face. He stared at the tiny human standing calm and still in the center of the arena. She had not moved after holstering her weapon. She just waited. One of the Luminary officials floated down to the arena floor. It examined the targets with senses humans did not possess. It announced that there was no technological interference, no hidden guidance systems, no computer assistance of any kind. The shots were exactly what they appeared to be. Impossible accuracy achieved through biological capability alone. The arena erupted again. Yuna turned and walked back to her delegation. Marcus met her at the edge of the floor. He said nothing, but his expression showed pride. The other human delegates maintained their calm exterior, but their eyes were bright. Yuna sat down in her seat. She looked up at where Draknar still stared at her. She did not smile, did not show emotion. She simply met his gaze with steady confidence. The message was clear, without words. You asked to see human talent. Now you have seen it. This is what we are. This is what we bring. The demonstration period ended, but nobody moved to leave. The aliens were too busy arguing about what they had witnessed. Humans were supposed to be unremarkable. They were supposed to be the newcomers with nothing special to offer. But what Yuna had just done was not unremarkable. It was not normal. It was something the galaxy had not seen before, and it was only the beginning. The news spread through the station faster than light travel. Every species with delegates at the exchange heard about what happened in the arena. The human, the simple weapon, the impossible accuracy. In the dining halls and meeting rooms and private quarters, the aliens talked about nothing else. Yuna sat in the human delegation quarters reviewing reports on her datapad. Marcus stood near the window, looking out at the stars beyond the station hall. The other 4 members of their team were in the common area making plans for the next scheduled demonstrations. But everyone knew those plans might change. Something had shifted in the station atmosphere. A message came through on the official channel. Drakner had filed a formal challenge. He claimed the demonstration was either luck or fraud. He demanded a proper test under full observation with conditions that would prove whether human accuracy was real or just a single moment of chance. The Galactic Council had reviewed his challenge and agreed to allow it. Marcus turned from the window. His face showed concern. They are setting you up. The challenge conditions are designed to be impossible for humans. They want to prove we got lucky. Una set down her datapad. She had read the challenge requirements 3 times already. Multiple tests across different scenarios. Moving targets. Darkness. Time pressure. Combat simulation. Each test was designed to require capabilities humans supposedly did not have. Enhanced vision organs. Predictive neural clusters that could calculate trajectories before they happened. Time perception that could slow down moments into manageable chunks. What happens if we refuse the challenge? Marcus asked, even though he already knew the answer. Una looked at him. If we refuse, they will claim we are afraid because we know the first demonstration was false. Earth will be barred from the exchange for a generation. 25 years before we can apply again. By then the galaxy will have moved on and forgotten us. We will be the species that showed up once with a trick and then ran away when challenged. And if we accept and fail, Marcus said, then we fail honestly. Una stood up and walked to the window beside Marcus. But I do not intend to fail. Marcus studied her face. You really think you can pass these tests? They are designed for species with biological advantages we do not have. Una smiled slightly. That is exactly why I will pass them. They are designed around what they think is required. They do not understand what humans are capable of because they have never met anyone like us before. The next day, Una went to the station training facilities. She requested access to a private room. The facility manager was a spider-like being with 8 eyes and a translator device attached to its thorax. It seemed curious about what the human wanted, but did not ask questions. It provided a small room with basic equipment. Una spent 6 hours there. She did not practice shooting. Instead, she sat in meditation postures that human warriors had used for thousands of years. Breathing exercises. Mental focusing techniques. Ways to quiet the mind and sharpen awareness. To an outside observer, it would look like she was doing nothing, just sitting still. But inside her mind, she was preparing in ways the aliens would not understand. Other species had evolved biological advantages over millions of years. Humans had evolved something different. The ability to train the mind and body to exceed their apparent limits. The capacity to enter flow states where time seemed to stretch and every action happened with perfect clarity. The discipline to practice the same motion 10,000 times until it became as natural as breathing. Marcus found her in the training room during the 5th hour. He brought food and water. She accepted both but did not stop her meditation. She could eat and drink while maintaining the mental state she was building. The others think I should try to talk you out of this, Marcus said as he sat down across from her. They think the challenge is a trap designed to humiliate us. It is a trap. Una agreed, but not the kind they think. Drakner believes he's exposing a fraud. What he is actually doing is giving me the perfect stage to show the galaxy what humans really are. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question that had been bothering him. What if there are more like you back home? What if human accuracy is not special but common? Should we be revealing this capability so openly? Una opened her eyes and looked at him directly. Human accuracy is common. Every species on Earth that survived did so, because they could hit what they aimed at. We hunted animals across vast distances. We threw spears and shot arrows and fired rifles for tens of thousands of years. Every human has this potential. Most just never develop it because they do not need to survive anymore. But the capacity is there in all of us. She paused and then continued. As for revealing it, the galaxy will learn what we are eventually. Better to show them now on our terms in a context that earns respect rather than having them discover it later in a way that creates fear. The day of the challenge arrived. The grand arena was more crowded than it had been for the demonstrations. Word had spread beyond just the military delegates. Scientists had come to observe. Xenobiologists wanted to study the human in action. Reporters from various galactic news services set up their recording equipment. Some species had even placed bets on the outcome. The human delegation entered together, but only Yuna would participate. The others took their seats in the observation section. Marcus gave her a slight nod. The other humans remained expressionless, but their presence was support enough. Drachna stood on the main platform with several Galactic Council members. He wore full ceremonial armor that made him look even more massive. When Yuna approached the platform, he looked down at her. His expression was difficult to read on his alien features, but there was something like grim satisfaction there. The challenge will proceed in 4 stages. A council member announced. The human will have 1 attempt at each stage. Failure at any stage results in overall failure of the challenge. Success at all 4 stages will earn humanity full recognition and a permanent seat at the exchange. The crowd noise increased. The stakes had just been raised beyond what anyone expected. A permanent seat meant voting rights on galactic military matters. It meant access to advanced training and technology sharing. It meant Earth would jump from newcomer to established member in 1 afternoon. Drachna spoke loud enough for the arena to hear. I set these conditions to be fair. Each test is possible for species with the proper capabilities. If humans truly possess the accuracy they claim, then these tests should be manageable. If the first demonstration was luck or deception, then that will become clear very quickly. Yuna said nothing. She walked to the starting position for the first test. Behind her, the arena fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes watched the small human standing alone on the arena floor. In her hand was the same simple pistol. No modifications. No upgrades. Just a basic, ballistic weapon that most species considered primitive. The first test parameters appeared on the display screens around the arena. Targets at 800 meters. 20 shots required. Standard galactic atmosphere conditions with random wind patterns. For most species, this would require a mounted weapon with computer targeting assistance. Yuna raised her weapon. She controlled her breathing. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. She felt her heartbeat. Steady and calm. She counted the rhythm. Between beats was when she would fire. In that moment of absolute stillness between one pulse and the next, the test began. Yuna fired the first shot. Then the second. Then the third. She found a rhythm that matched her breath and heart. Each shot was not forced, but flowed naturally from the one before. The weapon became an extension of her body. The targets became points in space that she simply connected to with intent and metal. 20 shots. 20 hits. Perfect center mass on every target. The arena exploded with noise. Aliens were on their feet. Some cheering. Others shouting protests. The council members looked at each other in confusion. Drachna stood completely still. His forearms hung at his sides. His expression had changed to something humans might recognize as shock, but the challenge was only beginning. 3 more tests remained, and each one would be harder than the last. The arena maintenance systems cleared the first test field and began preparing the second test environment. Yuna stood in the staging area, hydrating and breathing. Her heart rate had not elevated beyond normal levels during the first test. Marcus watched the biometric data on his pad and marveled at her calmness. She was treating this like a training exercise, not a challenge that could determine Earth's future in the galaxy. The council members were in heated discussion on their platform. Several species representatives had filed immediate protests. They claimed the first test must have had some flaw. Perhaps the wind patterns were not truly random. Perhaps the targets were closer than displayed. Perhaps the human had some hidden technology. But the test monitors showed no irregularities. Everything had been exactly as specified. Drachma remained silent during the protests. He watched Yuna prepare for the next test. Something in his warrior instincts was telling him he had made a mistake. Not in challenging the human, but in assuming she was like other species. He had based his challenge on what he knew. What if humans operated on completely different principles? The second test environment activated. The arena lights dimmed and then went completely dark. Not just absence of light, but absolute darkness achieved through light-absorbing fields. Most species had some form of vision that worked in darkness. Heat sensing, echolocation, electromagnetic spectrum vision. Humans had none of these advantages. They relied on visible light spectrum only. In the darkness, targets would move randomly while producing minimal sound. Just a faint whisper of movement. The test required hitting 10 targets within a 2-minute time limit. For species with natural dark vision capabilities, this was challenging but possible. For a human, it should be impossible. Yuna stepped into the darkened field. The entrance sealed behind her. The observation screens showed a thermal outline of her position, but nothing else. The darkness was absolute. The crowd fell silent, trying to hear what would happen next. Inside the field, Yuna closed her eyes. It made no difference in the absolute darkness, but the act helped her mind shift states. She focused entirely on sound. Humans had decent hearing when they learned to truly listen. She regulated her breathing to nearly silent. She felt the air currents in the space. She waited. The first target activated. A whisper of sound to her left. Movement from low to high. She tracked it in her mind, building a map of the sound. She raised her weapon and fired where the sound would be in the next moment. The target confirmation tone sounded. Hit. Second target. Behind her and moving fast. She turned and fired in one smooth motion. The sound was her guide. The movement pattern told her everything. Hit. Third target. Fourth target. Fifth target. Each time she found them in the darkness through sound alone. She was not seeing them. She was hearing them, and her mind was painting a picture from audio information that was detailed enough to aim by. This was not a biological advantage. This was training and focus that allowed her to use her standard human capabilities to their absolute limit. Sixth target. Seventh target. The crowd outside was going insane. They could see on the thermal display that she was hitting targets she should not be able to perceive at all. Species that prided themselves on their dark combat abilities were watching. A human with basic vision matched their performance through pure skill. Eighth target moved in an erratic pattern, designed to confuse echolocation. But Yuna was not using echolocation. She was using prediction based on sound cues. The erratic movement still made noise, still disturbed air currents, still gave her information. She fired. Hit. Ninth target. 10th target. The test completion tone sounded. 10 for 10 in absolute darkness. The lights came back up. Yuna stood in the center of the field, surrounded by destroyed targets. Her expression showed no emotion. No pride. No satisfaction. Just calm focus. The arena was chaos. Multiple species were demanding their scientists examine the human biology immediately. The Galactic Council was overwhelmed with protests and counter-protests. Half the observers believed they had witnessed something revolutionary. The other half believed there must be some explanation they were missing. Drakner finally spoke. His voice cut through the noise with authority. The test conditions were perfect. I verified them myself. The human passed legitimately. We will continue. The third test environment materialized. This was temporal complexity. Targets would appear for fractions of a second at random locations across a wide field. Reaction time was critical. Most species that excelled at this test had neural structures that processed time differently. They could perceive moments that lasted milliseconds as if they lasted seconds. Humans had standard neural processing speed. Nothing special. Yuna entered the field. She took a position at the center where she could see the entire space. She held her weapon ready, but not aimed. Her eyes went slightly unfocused. She was not looking at any one point, but taking in the entire field at once. A state of awareness that human warriors called mushin. Empty mind. No thought. Only pure reaction. The test began. Target appeared at 3 o'clock. Yuna moved and fired before conscious thought could happen. Her body knew what to do. Hit that target at 10 o'clock. Turn and fire. Hit that target at 6 o'clock. Fire. Hit that. She moved through the field, like water finding the path of least resistance. There was no pause between seeing and shooting. No moment of decision. Just fluid motion that connected perception to action with zero delay. This was not enhanced time perception. This was the human ability to enter flow state where the conscious mind stepped aside and training took over. 20 targets, all appearing for less than half a second each. 20 hits. Not a single miss. The crowd had given up on order. Aliens were shouting in dozens of languages. The translator systems had stopped trying to convert everything. The noise was just a wall of sound that rolled over the arena like a wave. The council called for a recess before the fourth test. They needed time to analyze what was happening. The xenobiologists needed to verify that humans truly had no biological enhancements. The military experts needed to understand how this was possible. 20 minutes was granted. Marcus met Yuna at the edge of the test field. He handed her water and a nutrient bar. How are you doing? I am good. Yuna drank the water slowly. 3 down. 1 to go. The last test is the combat simulation. Marcus reminded her. Multiple opponents. Civilians mixed in. Variable terrain and lighting. They designed it to require either computer assistance or multi-spectrum vision. Most species cannot pass it alone. Yuna finished the water. Then I will show them how humans hunt. The recess ended. The final test environment loaded. It was a simulation of an urban combat zone. Buildings and streets. Civilians moving through the space going about daily activities. Hidden among them would be hostile targets. Yuna would have to identify threats and eliminate them without harming civilians. Missing a threat or hitting a civilian both counted as failure. The test was designed to be impossible for any individual without assistance. The military species typically used teams with different sensory capabilities. Or they used AI systems to identify targets. A solo operator with only standard visible spectrum vision should not be able to pass. Yuna requested a 30-second meditation before starting. The council granted it. She stood still and breathed. She thought about her instructor back on Earth, the old man who taught her about accuracy. He always said that shooting was the easy part. The hard part was knowing what to shoot and what not to shoot. That required judgment. That required wisdom. That required being able to see not just with eyes, but with understanding that the simulation activated. Yuna moved into the urban environment. Civilians walked past her. They were holograms but realistic ones. She kept her weapon lowered but ready. Her eyes scanned constantly, looking for the things that did not fit, the movement that was wrong, the posture that showed aggression, the object that should not be there. First hostile appeared on a rooftop. Weapon raised. No civilians in the line of fire. Yuna aimed and fired in one motion. Hit. The hostile disappeared. Second hostile among a crowd. This was harder. The hostile was using civilians as cover. Yuna waited, watched. The hostile shifted position for a better shot. Window of opportunity. Yuna fired. Hit. No civilians touched. Third hostile. Fourth hostile. Fifth hostile. Each time she identified the threat among innocent movement. Each time she found the moment to shoot safely. This was not about enhanced perception. This was about pattern recognition. About understanding behavior. About judgment that came from being a species that had hunted and been hunted for millions of years. The simulation increased difficulty. More civilians. More hostiles. Tighter spaces. Yuna moved through it like she had done this 1,000 times before. In training she had. Human military training emphasized rules of engagement. Friend or foe identification. Combat decision-making under pressure. These were skills humans developed because they fought wars where the enemy looked like them. Where split-second decisions meant life or death, not just for soldiers but for civilians. Final hostile appeared. Hardest scenario. Child hologram standing next to the hostile. The hostile was using the child as a shield. Yuna approached closer. She saw the angle she needed. She fired. The shot passed within centimeters of the child hologram and hit the hostile center mass. Test complete. The simulation faded. The morning after the challenge, the human delegation quarters were unusually quiet. Yuna sat at the table reviewing messages that had flooded their communication system overnight. Requests for meetings. Demands for explanations. Offers of alliance. Threats thinly disguised as warnings. The galaxy had strong reactions to what they witnessed. Marcus entered from the sleeping quarters looking tired. He had stayed up late monitoring the station communication networks. The chatter was intense. Half the species represented at the exchange were calling emergency meetings to discuss the human problem. The other half were trying to figure out how to recruit humans for their military forces. We have a mandatory presentation to the full Galactic Council in 3 hours. Marcus said as he poured himself something the humans called coffee, though it was synthesized from alien ingredients. They want answers. They want to understand how we do what we do. Yuna looked up from the messages. Good. It is time they understood. We cannot move forward as partners if they think we are either frauds or biological anomalies. They need to know the truth. What is the truth? Marcus asked. He sat down across from her. I know we are accurate, but I do not fully understand why. I passed the same training you did, but I am not at your level. Most humans are not. Yuna set down her datapad. The truth is complicated. It is about evolution and culture and choice. It is about what humans had to do to survive and what we chose to become after we survived. She paused and organized her thoughts. Then continued. Every species evolves based on their environment and threats. The Vraxians evolved armor and strength because their world had predators that attacked with overwhelming force. The Chitral evolved hive minds because their world required cooperation to find scarce resources. Every species has their niche, and humans. Marcus prompted. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a world that was trying to kill us. Yuna stood and walked to the window. We were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the best at anything physical, but we could run longer than anything else. We could track prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. And we could throw things with accuracy, She turned back to Marcus. Do you know how rare throwing ability is in the galaxy? We have scanned the biological databases. Most species cannot throw accurately at all. Their shoulder joints and neural systems are not built for it. Humans have shoulders designed for throwing, brains wired to calculate trajectories, eyes that can track fast-moving objects. We are built to be accurate because for millions of years, the ones who could hit what they aimed at were the ones who ate and survived. Marcus absorbed this. So it is biological, partially. Una sat back down. But biology is only potential. What makes humans truly accurate is culture. We have been making ranged weapons for over 200,000 years. Spears, outlaws, bows, slings, rifles. Every generation teaching the next generation how to aim and shoot. That is cultural transmission of skill. That is not in our genes, but in our knowledge. She pulled up a file on her datapad, showed Marcus. I had our team compile data from Earth. Do you know how many humans practice some form of accuracy sport or training? Archery, shooting, darts, baseball. Any activity where the goal is to hit a target or throw accurately. The number is in the hundreds of millions. We have entire industries built around accuracy. We have competitions, records, training methods refined over thousands of years that Marcus looked at the data. So when the galaxy sees shoot, they are seeing the result of millions of years of evolution plus thousands of years of cultural refinement. Exactly. And they're seeing something else too. Una closed the file. They are seeing discipline. The ability to quiet the mind and enter flow state is not unique to humans, but we have developed it extensively. Meditation, martial arts, sports psychology. We understand how to train the mind to work with the body to achieve peak performance. The Galactic Council meeting took place in a huge chamber, designed to hold representatives from all member species. The architecture accommodated beings of vastly different sizes and environmental needs. Atmosphere bubbles, gravity fields, temperature zones. The chamber was a testament to galactic diversity. Una stood at the central platform with Marcus beside her. The rest of the human delegation sat in the observation section. Around them in ascending tiers sat or floated or existed the representatives of 43 different species. At the highest tier sat the council elders who governed the exchange. The lead elder spoke. Her voice was projected through systems that translated and amplified for all species. Commander Una Park, Lieutenant Marcus Kim, you are here to explain to this council how humans achieve the accuracy we witnessed yesterday. We have examined your biology. We have analyzed your weapons. We find nothing that explains your capability. Please enlighten us. Marcus stepped forward. He activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. He had prepared this presentation carefully. It needed to be clear and convincing without being threatening. Honored Council, what you witnessed yesterday was not anomaly, but the result of human evolutionary path. Allow me to explain. The display showed Earth, then zoomed to show early human ancestors. Marcus narrated as images appeared. Humans evolved on a world with many predators, but few natural defenses. We had no claws, no armor, no venom. We were slow compared to most predators, weak compared to most prey. We should have gone extinct. The display showed humans hunting, but we had 3 advantages. First, we could run longer than anything else on our world. We call it persistence hunting. We would chase prey for hours or days until it collapsed from exhaustion. Second, we learned to make tools. Sharp rocks, wooden spears. We extended our reach and our power. Third, and most important, we learned to throw. The display zoomed to show human shoulder anatomy. Marcus highlighted key features. Human shoulder joints are unique. We can rotate our arms through full circles. We can generate throwing force efficiently. Combined with bipedal posture and forward-facing eyes, we became the most accurate throwing species on our planet. A human can throw a rock and hit a target at 30 meters. This was life or death capability for our ancestors. He changed the display to show human history. For 200,000 years, humans made ranged weapons. Spears we could throw. Then atlots that extended throwing range. Then bows that could hit targets at 100 meters. Then crossbows. Then firearms. Each generation improving on the last. Each generation teaching children how to aim and shoot. The aliens watched in silence. The information was starting to make sense. Humans were not anomalies. They were specialists who evolved for accuracy, the same way Vraxians evolved for strength. Marcus continued. But evolution and tools are only part of the answer. The other part is training. Humans discovered long ago that accuracy is not just about eyes and hands. It is about the mind. The display showed human warriors in meditation poses, monks practicing archery, soldiers on firing ranges. We learned to quiet our thoughts, to control our breathing, to slow our perception of time through focus. We call this flow state, the mind and body working as one unit. No hesitation, no doubt, just action. He looked around the chamber. Every human has this potential. Some develop it more than others through training. Commander Yuna has trained since childhood, but she is not unique. We have millions of humans who could demonstrate similar accuracy in their areas of expertise. Hunters, athletes, soldiers, artists, the capacity is in all of us. A council member spoke up. It was a being that looked like living metal. If this capacity is common, why did you only send Commander Yuna to demonstrate? Marcus smiled slightly. Because one demonstration is enough to make a point. If we had sent 10 humans and all performed the same way, you would have seen it as show of force. One human showing capability demonstrates potential without seeming like threat. Another council member spoke. This one was Drakner. The Vraxian had requested permission to attend. He said, "You mentioned training. Would humans be willing to share these training methods with other species?" Yuna stepped forward, joining Marcus. "That depends," she said. Training accuracy is not just about technique. It requires understanding human philosophy about weapons and combat. We have rules we follow. We have ethics. We believe in precise application of force. Minimum necessary action to achieve objective. Never waste ammunition. Never miss your target. Never harm innocents. These principles are inseparable from the training. The chamber buzzed with discussion. This was more complex than they expected. The humans were not just offering marksmanship training. They were offering a whole philosophy of combat. The lead elder raised a hand for silence. She looked at Yuna with eyes that seemed to see more than just visible light. "Commander Yuna, we have one more question. You demonstrated accuracy with ballistic weapons. Does this capability extend to other areas? Strategy, navigation, scientific prediction? Or is it limited to physical targeting?" Yuna met her gaze. Accuracy is not limited to weapons. It is a way of thinking. When humans set goals, we aim for them with precision. When we solve problems, we look for exact solutions, not approximate ones. When we make plans, we calculate with care. Accuracy is fundamental to how we approach everything. She paused, then added, "You will see this in the war games if you allow us to participate. Our accuracy extends far beyond just shooting." The elder smiled. The Galactic Council chamber was different this time. Less formal. More tense. The emergency session had been called after 3 days of heated debate across the station. The question was simple, but the implications were massive. What should the galaxy do about humanity? Yuna sat in the observation section with her delegation. She could see the council members arguing in their various languages. The translator systems worked overtime trying to keep up with multiple simultaneous conversations. Some species advocated for immediate military alliance with Earth. Others wanted restrictions placed on human activities. A few suggested quarantine protocols to contain what they saw as a potential threat. The lead elder finally called for order. She waited until the chamber quieted, then spoke in a voice that carried authority. We have deliberated on the human question. We have heard arguments from all sides. We have consulted with experts across disciplines. The council has reached a decision. The chamber fell silent. Everyone waited. Humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Exchange. This includes voting rights and access to shared resources and training facilities. Earth is invited to establish a permanent delegation and may participate in all exchange activities without restriction. Relief washed through the human delegation. Marcus let out a breath he had been holding. But the elder was not finished. However, the council has an additional request. We wish to better understand if human accuracy extends beyond physical weapons to other domains. Strategy, scientific analysis, problem solving under pressure. Therefore, we formally invite Commander Una Park to represent Earth in the upcoming War Games. The chamber erupted. The War Games were held once every decade. They were the ultimate test of military command capability. 15 species would send their best strategic minds. They would compete in a complex simulation that tested every aspect of warfare. Resource management, fleet tactics, ground operations, diplomacy, espionage, everything. The winner gained a permanent seat on the Galactic Military Council. They would help shape military policy for all member species. It was the highest honor the exchange could bestow. And the competition was brutal. Most species sent commanders with centuries of experience. Earth would be sending someone who had never even seen the simulation before. Una stood and bowed to the council. I accept the invitation on behalf of Earth. I will do my best to represent my species with honor. That night, Drakner came to the human delegation quarters. He requested a private meeting with Una. Marcus started to object, but Una accepted. They met in a small conference room with windows overlooking the station exterior. Drakner looked different without his ceremonial armor. Still massive, but somehow more approachable. He sat in a chair reinforced for his weight. Una sat across from him. Neither spoke for a moment. Finally, Drakner broke the silence. I came to apologize. I challenge you out of pride and arrogance. I thought humans were frauds or weaklings. I was wrong on both counts. You showed me something I needed to see. Una nodded. You gave me the opportunity to show the galaxy what humans are capable of. I should thank you, not accept apology. Drakner made a sound that might have been laughter. You are gracious. My species could learn from that. We have conquered 12 worlds through strength alone. But we have stagnated. We rely on force because that is what we know. We have not evolved our tactics in centuries. He leaned forward. I have a request. Would you be willing to share your training methods with Raxian warriors? Not just shooting techniques, but the philosophy behind them. The discipline. The precision. We need to learn what you know. Una considered this carefully. I would be willing. But cultural exchange must go both ways. If I teach your warriors about human accuracy, then I want to learn about Raxian strength and endurance. We both benefit or neither benefits. Drakner extended one of his 4 hands. Agreement. When the war games are finished, we will begin. They shook hands. The massive alien hand completely engulfed Una's smaller human one. But the gesture was meaningful. A bridge being built between species. The week before the war games passed quickly. Una spent most of her time studying previous competitions. Marcus pulled footage from the station archives. They watched how different species approached strategy. The Luminari favored overwhelming technological superiority. The Chitral used swarm tactics and perfect coordination. The crystal beings employed mathematical precision in every move. Each species brought their natural advantages to the simulation. Each had developed strategies that played to their strengths. Una needed to find the human advantage in strategy. She thought about what made human military thinking unique. Humans fought wars where both sides had similar capabilities. We did not have overwhelming biological advantages over our enemies. We had to outthink them, not overpower them. We developed concepts like asymmetric warfare, psychological operations, economy of force. We learned to achieve maximum effect with minimum resources. The war games. Simulation was held in a massive chamber at the station core. 15 command stations arranged in a circle. Each station had holographic displays and control interfaces adapted for the species using them. In the center was a massive projection showing the simulated galaxy where the game would take place. The rules were explained by the game master, a neutral AI that would run the simulation. Each commander started with identical resources. One home world, a small fleet, limited industrial capacity. The simulation would run over 3 days, compressed into game time equivalent of 10 years. Victory conditions were flexible: conquest, alliance building, economic dominance. Any path to becoming the dominant power was acceptable. Una took her position at the human command station. Around the circle, she could see the other commanders. Some looked confident. Others seemed nervous. All of them had experience and advantages she did not have. But she had accuracy. She had precision. She had the human ability to identify the critical point and apply exact force to achieve maximum effect. The simulation began. Most commanders immediately started building military fleets. The traditional approach: build strength, conquer neighbors, expand territory. Una watched them commit resources to warship construction. She did something different. She invested in infrastructure and intelligence gathering. She built sensor networks, established listening posts, began mapping the resources and movements of every other player. By the end of simulated year 1, most commanders had doubled their fleet size. Una fleet had actually decreased. She had converted warships into scout vessels and sensor platforms. The observers watching from outside the simulation were confused. Some thought she did not understand the game. Others thought she was already losing. But Una was gathering information. She was learning her opponent's patterns. She was identifying weaknesses and opportunities. She was aiming before she fired. Year 2 brought the first conflicts. Aggressive commanders attacked their neighbors. Fleets clashed. Worlds changed hands. The Vraxian commander played to type with overwhelming force. The Chitral coordinated perfectly to swarm isolated targets. The Luminari deployed advanced weapons that gave them technological edge. Una avoided direct confrontation. When attacked, she withdrew. She traded space for time. She let other commanders exhaust themselves fighting each other. And she continued to gather intelligence. By year 3, she had detailed profiles on every opponent. She knew their tactics, their priorities, their weaknesses. Then she struck, but not with military force. She used diplomacy. She approached the commanders who were losing badly, offered them alliance and protection. In exchange, they provided her with resources and intelligence. Within simulated months, she had built a coalition of smaller powers that collectively matched the major ones. The other commanders had not expected this. They had focused on military power. Una had focused on relationships. She turned the game into something different. Not conquest, but coalition building. Year 5 brought a crisis. The Luminari commander had become the strongest military power. Their technology advantage was overwhelming. Several commanders had already been eliminated. The remaining ones faced a choice: submit to Luminari dominance or find a way to counter them. Yuna called for a conference of the remaining independent commanders. She proposed a strategy. The Luminari strength was technology, but their weakness was overextension. They had conquered too much too fast. Their supply lines were stretched. Their fleet was spread thin, maintaining control. She showed them the analysis her intelligence network had gathered. She identified the critical logistics hub, the single station where most Luminari supply convoys passed through. If that hub was destroyed, the Luminari Empire would fracture into isolated segments, but the hub was too well defended for any single fleet to attack successfully. It required coordination between multiple powers, trust, precision, timing. Everything had to work perfectly or they would fail. The other commanders looked at Yuna's plan. It was brilliant but impossibly complex. The kind of operation that required perfect execution. One mistake and it would fail catastrophically. Yuna met their eyes. We are humans. We do not miss. The attack happened in year 6. 5 separate fleets from different species arrived at the Luminari hub simultaneously. Each fleet had specific targets. The timing was precise to the second. Communication was coordinated through Yuna intelligence network.